Okay, so today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a poem called The Love Song of Alfred J. Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. I'm going to go over the meaning of the poem. I'm going to talk about the characteristics of modernism that it shows. I'm going to talk about the writing style, and I'm also going to compare Eliot's writing style to a couple other writing styles of literary periods that we've talked about previously. So, before I start reading a little bit of his poem, I read this quote from this article by a guy named Murphy on Bloom's Taxonomy, and it says, "To understand the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, the reader must understand the speaker, J. Alfred Prufrock, not what he is saying so much as why he is saying it. And from that angle, the poem can most profitably be approached." So it says, for not what he is saying, but why he is saying it. So, if you've read his poem, it talks a lot about J. Alfred Prufrock's search for self, and he says a lot of things in it. He goes out of order a lot, but everything that he says is significant in expressing the feeling that he has of this unsatisfied feeling that he doesn't connect with people the way that he wants to. He doesn't feel like he connects the way that he should, and he's very insecure about himself. In that same article that I read by Murphy, it said that J. Alfred Prufrock feels like an outsider within his own small, tight social circle, as an individual burdened with an immense social discomfort and riddled with both a fear of failure and reluctance to upset the apple cart of his own sense of alienation. So the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock is actually not a love song at all. It's more of a soliloquy about a man that's lamenting for this loss of connection that he feels with the people that he talks to. So this poem starts out, and it says, "Let us go then, you and I, with the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights, in one-night cheap hotels," and it keeps going on, and it says, "of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit." So when you first read this, it sounds pretty confusing. It's not straightforward, but if you look deeper into it, really what it's talking about is he's going to start telling the readers about his life. And he mentions this overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? So as the poem goes on, the meaning is actually as you read the poem, the meaning is actually starting to come to you. He goes through and he talks about a lot of different things, and he says this one quote that is pretty straightforward about how he feels about being judged. He says, "And I have known the eyes already." And here he's talking about being judged. He's talking about how he feels the eyes of people on him, judging him wherever he goes. And that also, talks about his insecurity. And it says, "I have known the eyes already, known them all, the eyes that fix you in a formulated phase. And when I am formulated, sprawling on a pen, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the buttons of my days and ways, and how should I presume?" So he's saying whenever he goes to any kind of social gathering, he feels pinned. He feels like it's a struggle that he has to survive through. And he feels extremely self-conscious here too. And again, later on in the poem, he says, "And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare, and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair. With a bald spot in the middle of my hair, they will say, how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. But they will say, but how his arms and legs are thin." So he's talking about, he's going to this gathering, the social gathering, and he's dressed up fine and nice, and he describes how he's dressed, but still, he says, they will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. So even though he's dressed fine, he doesn't feel secure enough in himself and how he feels about himself. He thinks that they're all going to be talking about him and that he doesn't connect with them very well, and he feels this insecurity. And throughout the poem, it's talking about this insecurity that he feels. He's talking about his search for self, which I've already mentioned before, but this search for self is an extremely important thing to him, which is why this whole poem is talking about him and how he feels and how he sees himself as a person. And he says another thing in stanza 115. It says, "Deferential, glad to be of use, political, cautious, meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed and almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool." So, and that's even towards the end of the poem, and even by the end of the poem, he still believes that he's not worth, and he is so insecure about himself. And that's pretty much what the love song of Alfred J. Prufrock by T.S. Eliot is all about. It's about the search for self by this man, and how he doesn't feel like he connects with people the way that he once